what I'll be doing today is, I'm not a trained professional speaker in the sense like the previous two speakers have been, but what I will do is I'll be sharing, stories out of my life's journey and my experiences and how that journey has taken me from being a pathologist to becoming an entrepreneur and the journey in between. So, please bear with me and indulge with me in my storytelling today. That's the purpose of this. It's morely a storytelling session. Um, so as I said, that I'm a pathologist, and a pathologist is somebody who sits behind the microscope uh, to look at, you know, uh, things which are abnormal on a slide. And this is what I was trained in at JJ Hospital. This is what I got trained in when I went to Tata Hospital and to the US. Uh, and that's my comfort zone, so being trained behind the microscope. But this microscope also has a very deep rooted story. When I went to the US, obviously I could not afford at that point of time, the kind of travel and boarding and lodging expenses in the US. So uh, the mentor in US who invited me said that I will waive off my charges provided you buy the microscope of my choice. That if I train you on something, I want you to be sure that you use that skill to the best of its ability. So this is the microscope that I purchased way back in 1994, which is now 27 years ago. This microscope is the first investment that I really made when I started my lab, Suburban Diagnostics. This microscope continues to remain with me even till today. It is probably the best investment that I've ever made in my life. At that point of time, this microscope cost me about 1.7 lakhs. Today, I mean, I would not know what the value would be. And last year, when my daughter graduated and she got into Tata Hospital to do her residency in pathology, I gifted her this microscope as a symbol of good luck, that the legacy should continue with people who are better and more equipped. So uh, the big lesson from this is that looking after your equipment. I think being passionate about what you do and looking after that well. Uh, this microscope is like an extension of my eye, uh, and like I said, it's my comfort zone. So one day, a patient came to me, and when we had the small lab of about 800 square feet, and we had a glass in front of me, so anybody who would come into the lab would be able to knock on that glass, and then I would come out and meet every patient personally. So this patient one day told me that, doc, it's great to see you here, but I think you need to move to the other side of the microscope. I said, what do you mean? He's saying, if you want to grow as an enterprise, if you want to grow the lab, then you can't be stuck behind the microscope. You need to move away from your comfort zone. Now, that was a very difficult situation for me, that I've been trained to be sitting behind the microscope. That's my knowledge, that's my skill. So to give that up and then to move outside that comfort zone, but it's a very cliched statement, right? Growth happens outside your comfort zone, and that's exactly what happened. Had I been sitting behind the microscope, perhaps I would have still been that one lab with one pathologist sitting behind it. Today, we are at about 200 locations across Western and Central India. We have about 50 full-time, very high-end pathologists who work with us. So that's the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes you really need to push yourself, or somebody needs to push you to move outside your comfort zone. And when I moved outside my comfort zone, I was able to do things to grow the enterprise, to bring better quality people, to improve systems and processes, to get into training. And that is how I was able to grow the enterprise. So that's the story about the microscope. The other story is about me sitting with Dr. Arte on that particular chair, and that's just to bring a little humor. Any new pathologist that we hired who sat on that particular chair, female pathologist, either got married or got pregnant, and neither me, Dr. Arte, had anything to do with that. So we would train people, and they would join, and they would get pregnant, or they would get married, and they would leave. So we decided that how do we stop that? So I said, ठीक है, Dr. Aarti, let us, you and I only sit on this chair. You are, close to 60. I've been happily married for a long time. I don't think I can get pregnant or want to get remarried. And same goes with you. So both of us decided that we will sit on that chair and give the other chairs to the other pathologists. It was just a small joke that we used to crack internally, but it actually happened that after that, perhaps we were able to build a larger team with us. So when I started close to 30 years ago, the healthcare market was, fragmented. Uh, Most of the diagnostic services were hospital based at that time. So the private lab setup that we see today was not existent. And this concept of standardization that we see today was, or it's still evolving, was completely not there. And it was still very, very patient centric, not customer centric. But yet we were seeing there was change everywhere. The entertainment industry was changing, the banking industry was changing, the retail industry was changing. And that's where I felt, so one of my favorite movies is a movie called Satya. I don't know how many of you have seen that movie, uh, but there's a very important line in that movie. It says, "Mauka sabhi ko milta hai." Everybody gets an opportunity. It's how you want to take that opportunity. So we all get opportunities in our life. It's about us being ready for those opportunities. So I felt this was a great opportunity for us to bring in that change in the diagnostic industry. The change that we wanted to bring was, how does one choose healthcare? Normally you choose healthcare either through word of mouth, somebody in your family or a friend or a colleague or a neighbor, but there's no real way in which you can if you want to buy a car today, you can go through the website and see all the specifications, engine size, horsepower, type of tires. You want to buy clothes, you know exactly what it is. So how do you bring in that level of transparency even in healthcare? So that was one objective. And also the other part was that, there's a large part of healthcare which is driven by illness, but there is an equally or a bigger part that is driven by wellness. So people who are well and who want to continue to remain healthy don't like to be called as patients. So how do we bring in that whole element of customer centricity, is to convert the patient to a customer status and to give that feeling that, because see what happens in healthcare is nobody comes to healthcare because they want to. Everybody comes to healthcare because there is a need. Somebody, you are forced to. There's an underlying negative sentiment. So the objective was, how do we change that negative sentiment to a positive? How do we change that need to a want? And that we felt was, if we looked at as the patient as a customer and looked at 360 degrees, we could change that negative sentiment to a positive. And that was the opportunity that we saw at that point of time. And that's how Suburban Diagnostics was formed, with inspiration being at the starting point. And inspiration is very important. The way I tell myself or I explain to people what is inspiration is just the simple fact of feeling excited about what you're doing, about wanting to go to work every day. And that is what inspiration means to me in a very simple way. Do I feel excited about going to work every day? Do I look forward to a Monday morning where I want to go back and do things? Or am I just waiting for the weekend to come? So for me, inspiration means I get up every morning feeling, oh, I want to go and I want to contribute. I want to add value. I want to make a difference. And that's the inspiration that continues to drive me even today. But inspiration by itself is not enough. You need to have perspiration. You need to have hard work. You can't just say, okay, fine, I'm inspired and I'll go. But if you don't put effort towards it, it won't happen. And that effort needs to be commitment. You have to be dedicated to it. So you have to have that level of commitment, that persistence, that you don't give up, because like an ECG, life is not going to be a straight line. It's going to be ups and downs. So you have to be consistent and persistent. You have to be dedicated towards it. But if you continue in the same way and you don't innovate, you don't come up with something new, you will probably stagnate. So you keep innovating, you keep adding some new ideas, new concepts. And very important that you keep celebrating, because if you don't celebrate, if you don't pat yourself on your back, you don't pat your team on your back, you don't pat each other on your back, I think it's very important that you keep celebrating. So this is a constantly evolving cycle, that you get inspired, you work hard, you stay persistent, you keep innovating, and you keep celebrating. And that's been the it's the dream that I'm living today. Is the dream has been, these are the sort of pillars for that dream of mine. So this is the first lab that we started with in 1994. It was, like I said, an 800 square feet lab, and that is actually me. I mean, so that's not photoshopped hair. That is genuinely natural hair on my head at that point of time. And you can see I'm very proudly sitting in front of this machine that we had imported from Germany. It was a second-hand machine. Uh, and I was just very, very passionate about what we did at that point of time. We were offering very basic pathology services. Suburban Diagnostics, something my wife and I co-founded. So all the departments, medical, non-medical, business, were headed by just the two of us. We did everything. But that doing everything, and I'll come to that later, was probably the best opportunity we got. So where are we today? So from 800 square feet today, we occupy more than 100,000 square feet. There are days when we touch more than 10,000, 12,000 patients a day. Like I said, we're close to 170 locations. We offer 3,000 different tests. We offer about 25,000 home visits every month. We have a team that is about 1,200 people, 100 plus specialized doctors who work with us. And all the teams have been now managed by professionals. So we have a fully empowered, well-managed professional team. And I want to give a little story about, you see this, the previous slide was the smaller version of the machine. Now we have the Ferrari version of that machine. So as you see, as the machine gets bigger, the hair on your head becomes lesser and lesser. So that's the side effect of, as you keep expanding, the hair on your head becomes lesser. But that's what gave us the opportunity to be the first lab in the country to be eligible for COVID testing on 22nd of March last year. Since then, we have done about 1.5 million COVID tests and counting. And the way we say it is that this was an opportunity for us to truly fulfill our purpose. We did our first COVID test on 24th of March last year, which is my birthday. And my team said, sir, you can't get a better gift than this. So there are 2 days in your life which are important: the day you are born and the day you realize why you were born. And that last year was truly evident to me that as a healthcare professional, I was able to fulfill my purpose, my objective of being part of this industry, to be able to make a difference, and how testing has played such an integral role in this whole COVID pandemic was evident. And we got that opportunity to be able to fulfill that purpose. And we were able to add value to so many different people. And I'm truly proud that we were able to do that at that time. I will now share some of the stories that I have encountered over the last 25, 30 years. And the one that sort of sticks into the minds of people after I've given a talk is this particular one about opening a shutter. Now, I don't know what is the average age group, but perhaps people who have never, I don't know how many people, because it's difficult for me to get a show of hands, but I don't know how many people have really opened a shutter. And a shutter, if you have a ground floor office or a shop, you have to go and you have to unlock, and then you have to lift the shutter up. But they were, and I did this because, like I said, we had a very small team. Anju and I, besides us, we were just 3 or 4 people who worked with us at that time. So I had to reach my lab at 6:45 in the morning, between 6:30 and 6:45, to open the shutter so that the guy could come and do the jhadu katka, and then we would be ready for the first patient by 7:30. And I would do this every day, open the shutter, and at the end of the day, pull the shutter down. And I realized that this opening and shutting of the shutter was teaching me so many different things. So the first thing it was teaching me is the sense of ownership, that I had the keys of that shutter in my hand. The sense of ownership and responsibility was there, that if I lose that, nothing else will happen. So that huge sense of ownership was there with me. The second was punctuality. If I did not reach in time, everything else after that would get delayed. So I had to reach there at 6:45, no matter what. So that if I didn't, if I reached in time, then everything else would also happen in place. And if you know how to open a shutter, then you would have to bend down first. So it taught me a lot of humility, that no matter what, you start your day by bending down to a bigger force and you lift the shutter up. So you have to bend down to stand up. So that sense of humility was there every day when I opened the shutter. Uh, you need to be physically very fit and agile. It's not very easy if you are not healthy and fit. So it's very important that you look after yourself, keep your back and your muscles. So looking after your health was very important, but also maintenance, like I mentioned earlier, maintaining the shutter. So if a well lubricated, well oiled shutter versus something which is not maintained well, very difficult to open a shutter that is not well lubricated or well oiled. So how to look after yourself and how to look after the shutter itself. Then having a backup plan, that in case if I am not able to reach for whatever reason, what is my backup plan? What is my backup strategy? That suppose I am not well, suppose I'm traveling, for some reason I'm not able to reach there, who else can I empower to give the keys to, so that they can open the shutter on time. So that backup plan is very important. Then having that teamwork and collaboration, that once I reach at 6:45, the next person has to come at the same time to do the housekeeping, then the first technician comes at 7:30, and then throughout. So having that collaborative teamwork is very important. Then when the shutter was shut, and if somebody wanted to reach out to us, can I just paint my residence number? There were no mobile phones at that time, so we didn't have a website, so I had to just paint my residential number, that if I'm not here, please contact me at my residence. So the ability of communicating with your customer is what I learned from this. But one very big important fact that I learned for this is that at the end of the day, when you pull the shutter down, you're also telling yourself that part of the day has ended. Leave whatever was there inside there, don't carry it back home. So compartmentalize your day from the time you open the shutter till you shut the shutter. So many times we tend to take our home to work and work to home. But this deliberate attempt of opening and shutting the shutter is actually giving you the opportunity to compartmentalize your days. So you have to find ways to compartmentalize yourself. When you come home, you take off your shoes, you're telling yourself, I'm taking off that part of my day and I'm not going to carry it into the house. I'm hanging the keys of my car onto a hook. I'm telling myself I'm hanging up that part of the day and I'm not going to carry that inside. So find ways to compartmentalize your day. Now, these are the learnings that I got from opening the shutter for so many years that I did. And I wanted to share that with all of you. And I hope, it can be a good takeaway for all of you as well. The second is about dreaming big. It's very important that, you have a vision, you have goal, you have aspirations, because that's the starting point. So that inspiration is very important. If you don't dream big, you will, to make it big, you have to have a bigger dream. So have a bigger dream, have the right intent, have a dream larger than life. It's very important that you try and, you know, create that vision for yourself, whatever it is. Everybody will have their own version of what is big. And there's no comparison here. It's very personal, it's very individual. uh, from where Anju and I started, for us, we never felt that we would be able to reach the stage. So I think my family support, my team support, the kind of friends and mm, guidance that I've got, has allowed me to be where we are today. So I think, and today is just the launch pad for something bigger in the future. And those aspirations can keep evolving over a period of time. You reach one milestone and you might want to put another milestone. So it's very important that you continue to drive yourself forward by dreaming big. This perhaps is one of the most important lessons that I learned, is that because I was a medical professional, I had never run an enterprise. So the first 10 years from 1994 to 2004 was like a working MBA for me, because I had to learn from opening the shutter to signing out the reports and everything in between. So whether it was sales and marketing, whether it was operations or logistics or IT or purchase, finance and accounts was fortunately managed by Anju, continues to be that. But all the other aspects, was something that I had to learn. Then there's no better way to learn than by doing it yourself. Today, even after so many years, I'm able to add value to any of the professionals. So we have a CXO level, and then we have, senior leadership team. I'm able to contribute and make a difference to every aspect of the business because I did everything with my own hands. Like I mentioned, we do 25,000 home visits. Home visits was something that was almost forced upon us when a larger competitor opened into our core geography. and we felt that we are going to lose out. So I said, let me start going out to people's homes. So for almost 10 years, I would reach at 7 and then go to people's homes and collect blood samples. Now, that learning of going myself to people's homes and collecting blood samples has allowed us today to do, more than 1,000 or 1,500 home visits at time. In COVID, we have done, I don't know, many thousand home visits. Now that's, so when you do things with your own hands, that's perhaps the best way to learn. And there's no better way to learn than by getting your hands dirty. So don't be afraid of, getting down to the shop floor, whatever it is, and get your hands dirty. There's no better way to learn than that. Me coming on this platform is, again, an example of relationships. I have a wonderful relationship with Praveen. Praveen and I met a few years ago. He's met many people in my team, though we have not formally engaged, as business partners, but I think we've built a very solid, relationship. So relationships, with my own family, with my team, with my patients, with my, the doctors, because we need to work with doctors. Relationship with our vendors. I don't call them vendors. I call them business partners. So almost everything that we have today in our lab is because of the relationships that I've built with so many people. Every Sunday, for example, I will curate a very nice, interesting article. And music is a big passion with me. So I'll have a curated music playlist related to that article, and I will send it to approximately 1,000 people every day, every Sunday. So I try and keep a connect with people through whatever channel I can. And purely, it's just my own way of reaching out to people. One one story about relationships I'll share with you is about a boy called Jignesh. Jignesh used to work with a very large multinational channel partner of ours who would supply equipment, who would supply the reagents on which we would do the tests. And for some reason, he decided to move out of that company and he left and he joined another company. So I did not meet Jignesh for quite some time. In fact, that large machine that I showed, that big machine where I had less hair, that machine was thanks to Jignesh's inputs and his motivation that Dr. Ra, you need this kind of a machine. But then Jignesh left and he, went to some other company. And after 6 months, he called me and he said, can I come and meet you for half an hour? I said, क्या हो गया Jignesh? He's like, नहीं मेरे को just आपसे कॉफी पीनी है आपके साथ. I said, हाँ आ जाओ Jignesh, क्या हुआ? He's like, I'm not happy in life, even though I've moved to a bigger job, better job. Nobody has, I have not learned anything. I said, kya ho gaya, Jignesh? He's saying, pehle mein aata tha, you would not allow me to sit. You would take my case. You would ask me 20 questions. You would, scold me. You would keep me on my toes. But every interaction with you, I learned something new. So today I've come for you to just fire me. Just give me a scolding. Now, I could not imagine somebody actually saying they were missing being scolded or being fired. He's saying that was the only way I learned, and I learned so many things from you. And that story with Jignesh will remain with me forever. There are so many stories like this, but I just thought that in every relationship, all one has to remember is, am I able to add value to that relationship? And my father's very important thing about relationships is relationship is like an elastic. So it is held by two people, one on this side and one on the other side. So if you stretch the elastic beyond a point, the elastic will break and it will hurt both ends, both the people holding that elastic. Same thing is it in a relationship. Don't stretch a relationship beyond a point that it breaks. So relationship is like an elastic. If you stretch it beyond a point, it's going to break and hurt both ends that are holding it. So nurture relationships. I can tell you that everything that I've got today is because of the relationships. Everything. Whatever I am today is purely because of the relationships that I've developed. So I'm so grateful to all the wonderful people who have added value in my life. This is something which, I knew from very early days that I can't do everything myself and I don't know everything. I'm not, I'm not the best at everything. So it's very important that you are secure in what you know and you're secure in your own competence. But at the same time, if you want to grow, the best way to grow is to have people below you who are better than you, because they are the only ones who will lift you up. If you want to move up, have somebody better than you who will push you up, because that's the fear we have. If I hire somebody who's better than me, will that person take my job? No, absolutely not. You have your own core competency and your core skills. Be confident and be comfortable in that, and hire people who are better than you in different areas, because you will be able to complement each other. There is no shortcut for experience. No matter what you do, experience will always count. So your experience clubbed with somebody's better knowledge or skill is a great teamwork that happens. So always be comfortable in hiring people who are better than you, because that's the only way they will lift you and lift the organization up. This is a very unique concept to my organization, to Suburban Diagnostics, but also that can be related to any large organization. So when you are small, when we were a small team, Anju and myself, and maybe 4 or 5 people, whatever input anybody got, everybody knew what was happening. But as you grow as an organization, as you build different layers, each organization becomes into a case of Chinese whispers, that I will tell somebody something, they will say something else, and by the time the message goes down, it is lost in translation. So the message that I have for my team is, what starts with you ends with you. So if a customer or a patient or a doctor or somebody calls me and I inform the next in line to get it done, all I expect is, please come back and close the loop with me. Okay, what I told you to do or what I asked you for your help, did it get done? So what starts with you ends with you. Don't assume that it will get done just because you gave it to somebody else. It's okay to be a little paranoid about it, but it's good to close the loop. So what starts with you ends with you, no matter what. Find a way to close the loop, and you'll see that you will not be caught with unnecessary surprises. Then that people will not say, oh, I forgot, oh, I missed it, or whatever. Something which is really important. If I tell my next in line, I say, please just make sure, in how much time can I hear back from you? They say, okay, give me 24 hours. I wait for 24 hours and I say, okay, fine. Can you please tell me what happened? Or they come back and tell me. So they know that's the way. So what starts with you ends with you. I'll give you a simple example. In one of our centers, that we have two shifts, 7 to 4 and 12 to 8, 12 to 9. So that 4 o'clock shift, when they are leaving, they have certain instructions from patients that I want my report to be emailed, or I want something to happen at a particular time. When they leave at 4, but the work is still not done, they have to make sure that they inform or they give a handover to the next team. All they do is to the team is tell them, when you have sent the report, please let me also know, did you complete my task in the morning? So there is a closing the loop process that we have made in the organization, that anything that is incomplete will be handed over to somebody else, who will, once completing, give the feedback to the owner of that request. So what starts with you ends with you. We are all afraid of making mistakes, but mistakes are an essential part of anything in life. And the best part is that mistakes teach you a lot. Every mistake tells you, and when you acknowledge your mistake and you say, yes, I was wrong, the person on the other side also will, you know, step down and say, okay, fine, because no one is perfect. Everybody can make a mistake. But it's very important that you acknowledge your mistake. Don't brush it under the carpet. More important than that, I feel, in a large organization setup, is to share your mistakes. That, look, I made this mistake. I don't want you to make this mistake. Let people learn from your mistake. That for me is the biggest lesson on making a mistake, because you put a corrective action, you put a preventive action, but then you make a case study and you share it with everybody. The idea is that, and that's how cross-functional teams learn across the network, that, oh, this happened to me in this location, maybe somebody else can benefit from it. I don't want people. So repeating the mistake is not correct, especially if you don't share it. So you will be challenged with problems throughout your career, but acknowledge it if it is for the first time. Find why it happened, do a root cause analysis, do a CAPA, but very important is share your mistakes. Let other people learn from your mistakes so that nobody else makes the same mistake that you made. I think I can just go on and on about leadership, but the leadership in COVID was a completely different scenario, and it taught us so many different lessons. Uh, Very important that in a crisis situation, you are at the front end with your team, shoulder to shoulder, lending them support. A good leader is somebody who, when things are going bad, steps in and says, I am the front. And when things are going well, steps back and says, my team did this. That's the good leader. A good leader is somebody who is able to predict a problem before it happens and prevent that and make life easier for the team. A good leader is somebody who will appreciate in public but admonish in private. A good leader is somebody who will be a good listener. It's very important to be a good listener. So, this concept of inclusive leadership. A good leader is somebody who will delegate, who will empower, but also will inspect what he or she expects. So, inspect what you expect. All these are, things that I continue to learn on. And a good leader is also somebody who does not have to prove that you are the smartest person in the room. If you have a team that is better than you, let the team speak. I have a very nice story about Sundar Pichai. Why he was chosen to lead Google is that in group forums, Sundar would speak the least, but he would speak probably the most impactful sentences. And that's how the founders of Google thought that, no better person than him to empower. And that is what happened. That you don't need to prove yourself that you are the smartest person in the room just by self that you are a leader. No, it's not required. And you don't need to always, prove that you are a leader. It's okay to step back and let other people. So there are so many different lessons that I've learned in leadership, and maybe we can have a separate talk only on leadership. As I mentioned right in the beginning, when you have to open the shutter, you have to look after yourself. So the one message that I would like to give everybody is to look after anything in life, first look after yourself. Because if you can look after yourself, then you are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually there to look after anything that's important. So if you want to look after your business, look after yourself first. If you want to look after your family, look after yourself first. Because if you are not healthy, if you are not in the right frame of mind, if you are not in that right zone when you come to work every day, how are you going to help and add value to people? So to add value to people, first, remember, add value to yourself. So you can't pour from an empty cup. First, look after. It might sound a little selfish, but you have to be selfish to be selfless. So first, be selfish to look after what is important, and then provide that kind of support to everybody else around, whether it's personal or professional. And very important that you balance life. You find something that is of interest to you outside your area of work. So music, like I said, is a big passion for me. I'm an avid cyclist and a photographer. I love to travel. My sister is a trained chef, but she stopped cooking, so I had to learn cooking. So I cook on Sundays now. So find something outside your daily routine that will keep you mentally stimulated. Very important. uh, you know find something, whatever excites you. I'm sure there are so many different things that can keep you excited, so find something that inspires you on a daily basis. And very important is to give back to society. There's no better feeling than giving, of adding value to people. So I start my day with putting up certain goals, and one of the goal is, did I find purpose and meaning? Did I add value to somebody? COVID has given us this opportunity where I feel we were given the opportunity to add value to 1.5 million families that we were able to touch. So find small ways that give back to society. The happiness that you get in giving is that much bigger. We all have this habit of giving Diwali gifts, and many times each of us will just circulate Diwali gifts. We'll just sort of repurpose them and give it. So about 10 years ago, Anju and I decided that we will stop giving Diwali gifts. Whatever money that we had budgeted for Diwali, from that year onward, we started contributing to a charity. And we told all our friends and everybody that stop giving us Diwali gifts. These are the charities that we support. If you want to give us a Diwali gift, instead, please give that equivalent amount to this charity. So whether it is an orphanage, whether it's an old age home, whether it is underprivileged children's education, uh, find something that you are emotionally connected with. So we stopped giving Diwali gifts, and we have encouraging people to stop giving us Diwali gifts as well. That please we don't need these gifts. We don't need that. So it's a small gesture, but it can make a big difference. So whatever corpus that we create, we collect, we try and give it back to society. So find ways of adding value to society as well. I can go on, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. I look forward to hearing your stories also soon. Thank you.